I'm not quite sure if that's supposed to be Queen Camilla or Queen Elizabeth II, but it is a ghostly apparition. It certainly isn't. It's quite terrifying.
It's Elizabeth
isn't
in a Camilla wig.
Queen Camilla. That's actually the most terrifying thing we've seen today. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot believe it's here. It's Halloween, and I thought it might be about time to do a haunted ghost tour of London part 2. And of course, my trusted companion Rob will be joining me on this one. Expect spectral sightings, horrific murders, serial killers, haunted hotels, so much to get through. Join me and Rob, my amazing colleague, as we explore the ghosts of the city of Westminster. Hello, sweetheart. Where are we going today?
Today we're going down the River Thames, going down the Embankment, the Victoria Embankment, named after Queen Victoria and her son, Prince Embankment. And we're going to check out a few
don't
sites.
Start already now, for God's sake. We have to be very serious. This is a ghost story, okay?
So Victoria Embankment, built in 1858 by Joseph Basil Jett to house the London sewers. As a result of the building of the sewers, it does actually have its own ghost. We spoke about in a previous video the ghost of Annie Naylor, the ghost in Farringdon who was murdered in the workhouse, dumped in the River Fleet, and now she haunts the sewers of London. Well, underneath us now is the main sewer tunnel in London.
The main sewage system. What amazes me is the River Thames. Think of the amount of bodies and corpses that have been thrown in there over the years. Plague victims, murder victims.
Well, we're actually going to cover one of them later on.
We are at Blackfriars Bridge.
Very famous, not even now, a very famous serial killer called the Thames Torso Murderer.
Exactly. Now, speaking of which, we're going to start with New Scotland Yard, you guys. Now, New Scotland Yard, as you can see here, is the headquarters of the Metropolitan Museum. The headquarters of the Metropolitan Police Force. Inside is one of the most famous museums in London. Now, this is the one I am desperate to get inside of. They will not allow you to film, but if you get to know a detective chief inspector, you can be a guest in there.
You have to be somehow linked to the police, don't you? So you have to be a policeman or a policewoman or know a police officer.
Or know someone that's in the know to get inside. Right, we're going to start. It is haunted in there because it's got a series of very macabre objects in there, dealing with some of the most prolific crimes in London's history. Now, to give you an idea, it's got the 2 letters from the Jack the Ripper investigation, the Dear Boss letter and the From Hell letter. From Hell letter. It's got the noose that was used to execute Ruth Ellis,
the last lady to be hanged.
Lady to be hanged in the UK. What's fascinating, it's got the cooking pot of Dennis Nielsen.
Does it? Didn't know
now, that might sound rather, okay, what's the deal with the cooking pot? But that's what he used to boil and cook his victims.
Melt the flesh.
17 men he murdered, wasn't it? He prowled around Soho,
flushed them down the loo,
and flushed them down the drains. That's how he got caught in the end.
He was busted by a dino rod plumber. Because his neighbour called the plumber. His plumber turned up, opened the drain.
Please know that, yes, there was a plumber. Came
found a melted bloke in the drain.
Bodies, wasn't it? Yeah. Let's not make fun of the light of this incredible subject. One police officer inside there found a torso, incidentally. He had found, what he had thought was a part of a torso, and they had found parts of it, a woman's leg in there. And later on, when they investigated, they couldn't DNA analysis, couldn't determine who this woman was, but it just completely disappeared. They say it's been haunted by a spectre inside of a nun, a headless woman dressed in nun's clothing, because they also found a crucifix in there with the name of a convent that they assumed that nun was from. So inside there, amongst all those macabre exhibits, is possibly one of the scariest ghosts in London. Now, over the years, police have witnessed seeing her and feeling a chilling sensation inside there. So not only famous for its sign, but also famous for its spectral hauntings. Shall we go for a walk, darling?
Let's do it. Let's have a stroll.
Where are we headed first?
Let's head down this way towards
Cleopatra's Needle. That would be the first.
And then we'll go to the Savoy and have a good little stroll.
Oh my God, is that simulating
a big pile of dung, I think. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's gross.
I don't think it is.
No, it's not. It's sandbags. But let's get back to ghosts. Now, there is a phantom boat that's said to come down the River Thames, particularly on really foggy, misty nights, that's seen coming down here. Almost like a pirate ship that would seem a bit like maybe it was coming from around by the Prospect of Whitby or around the Wapping area, where so many of the pirates were executed at Execution Dock. But one of the biggest fables, isn't it, on the biggest night of the year in London,
New Year's Eve,
is New Year's Eve, the 31st of December. I was about to say November, what's wrong with me? 31st of December, at midnight, a man is seen
wearing a top hat and a dark cloak.
And as a lot say, it's Jack the Ripper throwing himself off Westminster Bridge.
Rumours are that's why the Ripper murders finished as abruptly as they did about a month earlier.
So so that's another one that happens apparently. Now this is where thousands, I mean tens of thousands of people come. It's a bit like the ball dropping on Times Square.
The what?
On New Year's Eve, where they all come here and they all congregate in the freezing cold. I always feel so sorry for them. Nowhere to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Not allowed to drink.
Normally balls go up in the freezing cold.
I don't know if Margaret's going to let that in. Apologies if that does make the edit, my lovelies. Please forgive us. I knew there'd be a lot of laughing. This is supposed to be very spooky.
Yes.
And chilling. This is what people come for with our Halloween special, my darling. Right, next up, Cleopatra's Needle. Okay, guys, so as we're approaching here, this is the amazing Cleopatra's Needle. And it's the oldest man-made outdoor attraction in London. It's guarded on either side by the Sphinx. Now, it's made of red granite and it's 21 meters high and weighs an impressive 224 tons. Inscribed here with Egyptian hieroglyphics, it's also one of the only monuments in London with shrapnel damage from World War I.
It's even more over here, look.
But it dates back, of course, to 1450 BC. And it was presented to the UK in 1819 by Muhammad Ali, surprisingly enough, the Egyptian ruler.
Yeah, not the boxer.
And not the boxer. And it was a gift for
expelling
their
the
help.
French.
Yeah, with the Battle of the Nile and expelling the French during the Battle of the Nile.
It was
but
originally...
the stories that come, and Rob is going to get into that with us, that surround the monument, it is obviously cursed because it has caused the deaths of sailors, suicides, and I'm going to let Rob get into it a little bit more with you. He's going to tell us all about it, what he learns on his ghost tour.
So it was originally located in the ancient city of Heliopolis. Then it was moved by Cleopatra, who it takes its name from, and it was put into a museum dedicated to her, the love of her life, Julius Caesar. And it stayed there for around about 2,000 years, 1,800 years. At one point in its history, it fell over in the sand, which was why the hieroglyphics are so well presented on the actual column itself. So it's gifted to us in 1819, but we kind of left it there for a good 50 odd years. It wasn't until the 1870s that the British government decided to make an effort to go and pick it up. So they built a special obelisk-shaped boat called the Cleopatra that could be attached onto the back of a sailing vessel, and they were taking it home to London in 1877. All was going very well until they got to the Bay of Biscay in October of 1877, when there was a horrific storm, like sort of 100-foot high waves, thunder and lightning, and the rope that was towing the needle actually snapped, and the Cleopatra's needle floated off into the darkness.
The abyss.
So the brave captain of the ship, turned to his crew, and he selected 6 unlucky men, and he said, "You 6, get in that little lifeboat over there, go into the sea, and get me that needle." And these 6 men were lowered into the choppy, stormy ocean that night, and they were never seen again. And here we have a plaque just on the side of the needle here, facing the water, and these 6 men are the men.
William Askin, Michael Burns, James Gardner, William Donald, Joseph Benbow, and William Patan.
These are the 6 men who lost their lives in the Bay of Biscay trying to get the needle back, and they were never seen again. Because obviously in the 1870s there's no radar, no sonar, no satellite, so once it was gone, it was pretty much gone, and all they could do was hope for the best. And it wasn't found for another 4 months, and it was eventually found just floating around in the sea. They finally brought it back here and had it erected in early 1878. And immediately,
massive crowds,
but immediately this place became one of the darkest, spiritually active places in London,
Didn't
particularly
it? Yeah.
linked with mysterious suicides.
That's right. They say there's been a mass number of suicides. Over here.
And apparently people who've seen the suicides take place, they say that people just walk up these stairs, kind of glassy-eyed, no expression on their face, walk straight down the other side, turn at the bottom, carry on walking down these stairs here, and just go down under the water without any expression, any reaction whatsoever.
Not even a jump in, they just go down
Just
the
go
steps.
straight into the water, under the water, and never seen again. There is a phantom of a naked man, and the naked man is often seen running around and around the needle before he jumps in the water, but doesn't make a splash. He just goes into the water without making a
Seen
splash.
diving off, isn't he?
Seen diving off. There's also a disembodied laugh that's heard in the dead of night. People walking past the needle often hear like a kind of behind them as they're
Do
walking
that again,
along.
Rob.
Huh?
Do that again.
They kind of hear that creepy sort of disembodied laugh. There's many theories as to why it is so spiritually active. One theory is, of course, an Egyptian curse. You know,
Well, the
maybe
Egyptians were, aren't
maybe
they?
it was never meant to be removed from Egypt in the first place. Another opinion is it's the six men spirits around there. I always say that if I'd lost my life drowning in the sea trying to get a big rock out of the ocean, I'd be very annoyed if that was me. So I would have linked myself to the needle. But the main thing that people reckon it might be is these guys here, the sphinxes.
You told me this story before,
Because the
actually.
sphinxes are actually the wrong way round.
That's right. I remember you telling me
Because
about this.
in ancient Egypt, the idea of a sphinx is meant to be a guard dog protecting something from evil spirits.
So it's supposed to be facing...
It's facing that way, basically away from the needle. So it's meant to have its back to the needle. And the story goes, apparently, when Queen Victoria saw the designs of how they were going to lay the thing out, she said, "Oh no, the dogs need to face the other way. It looks more symmetrical, looks more aesthetic." So she had them turn the dogs around, rendering them completely useless. Because now, instead of protecting the needle, they're looking at the needle. So all the dark spirits and energy and entities can
coming
just
up from behind.
creep round and, latch themselves on.
It is beautiful, though, isn't it?
It is
Like you
gorgeous.
see the hieroglyphics on it as well. It's just stunning. And that is the cursed obelisk of London, ladies and gentlemen. 3,500 years old. But when people interfere, it's like the British Museum. When you think about it, it's the biggest warehouse of stolen goods in the world, right? And they
Elgin
say
marbles.
that's haunted by a mummy inside the museum as well. And they should not be taken from their resting places into these areas. You are disturbing the dead. It's the same when they were building the underground. We know this from doing the tube.
Oh, yeah.
Where
When
they remove so many bodies and they tunnel through graveyards and monasteries. Oh, yes. What about our man that jumped off Waterloo Bridge, Rob?
So, Waterloo Bridge.
This is insane, this one, yeah.
So this story's got a couple of things that are pretty crazy about it. So this is not the original Waterloo Bridge. This is the second bridge that's been on the site. This one was built in the 1940s, mostly by women, actually. It's got the nickname the Ladies' Bridge.
Bridge of London, that's right.
Because it was built by women because the men obviously were off fighting in the war at the time. There was a large female workforce. The longest bridge on the river, but the one that stood here before this one was a Victorian bridge, and it had one of the most famous deaths in London ever. 1841, there was an American stuntman, and his name was Samuel Gilbert Scott.
Was he American?
He was American, yes.
And the architect is Giles Gilbert
So yeah, the
Scott.
bizarre thing is, the architect of this bridge,
is
called
Giles
Gilbert Scott, but there's no relation.
Are you absolutely sure of that?
100%.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Samuel Gilbert Scott was an American stuntman, and what he used to do was jump off of high places into wet things. So he used to go off like, back in the States, he did the Niagara Falls jump in the barrel off the Canadian Falls.
Great.
So he came to the United Kingdom in 1837. He started in Cornwall and basically made his way all up to like Liverpool, Manchester, and he would jump off of high things into wet things. So allegedly, this is what they used to do in Victorian times. They would dig themselves up with some absolute nonsense. He told people he once jumped off a 200-foot cliff into an 8-foot puddle of water and survived to tell the tale. And obviously, no one can verify if this is true. So he just, he just bigged himself up. But 1841, he decided to jump off of the old Waterloo Bridge. Now, a trick he used to play on the audience was he would jump off first with a hidden rope attached to his body, so that when he would get caught midair and they'd pull him up and he'd do the jump again. So it would like surprise the audience because they thought he'd just jump off and just go into the water. And he used to do the rope around his legs, used to do it around his torso, but on this particular day, he decided for whatever reason to do it around his neck. Now,
Ooh.
Samuel Gilbert Scott, very muscular guy. He apparently turned to the crowd. He put the rope around his neck and he turned to the crowd and he famously shouted, "Why y'all look so cranky?" at the audience, because they were obviously a bit surprised he had a rope around his neck. And he jumped with it around his neck. And because he was so strong, he managed to land kind of holding the rope out from his neck with his muscles. Gave a little nod to be pulled up again. They pulled him up again. And obviously the crowd were loving it because they were like, this is the most spectacular thing we've ever seen. He turned to the crowd again and he famously shouted, "I'll show y'all how I dance in the air one more time." For whatever reason, his fingers had loosened. Some people say maybe he stubbed his toe as he went over the side and he just had a quick look down and it kind of distracted him. But the second time he fell, his fingers loosened and he hanged and his neck just snapped.
Oh my God, instantly.
But because of the
With
previous
all the
jump,
spectators
because
there,
of the previous jump, people assumed it was part
an
of the
illusion.
act. Yeah,
Okay.
so people were screaming and whooping, and it wasn't for about 7 or 8 minutes someone realised, oh, hang on a minute, I think things have gone terribly wrong.
Things have gone.
And he hanged himself in front of a crowd of many, many people off of Waterloo
Let's get
Bridge.
some pictures of that.
But the crazy thing is, this bridge also has a very unusual death attached to it. So this bridge was opened in the 40s, and in the 1970s, there was a Bulgarian dissident. His name was Georgy Markov, and he'd fled the Soviet Union in Bulgaria, come to London, got himself a job as a journalist, and he basically made his money by writing critical pieces about the Soviet Union in Bulgaria. So the Soviet Union weren't happy about this. So he was stood on the bridge one day on the way to work, felt a sharp prick in the back of his thigh, and there was an umbrella on the floor. Someone apparently picked up the umbrella, got in a cab, drove off. He thought nothing else of it.
Poisoned.
And then the following day, he woke up with really bad kind of flu-y symptoms, like runny nose, sore throat, called in sick at work. Next day it happened again, but he was even more ill, called in sick at work again. And then after that, work never heard from him again. A couple of days later, they went round to his apartment and he was dead in the apartment. And when they did his post-mortem, they cut open the back of his thigh and there was a little pellet of ricin poison inside under his skin, which if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, you know exactly what that is. Basically, it kills you.
Like Lysavenko.
Yeah, it kills you over a period of days and you think you've got really bad flu. And he was assassinated by the KGB.
Well, there's another death attached to the one above it, isn't there? Blackfriars Bridge.
Blackfriars Bridge.
That involves the hanging man.
Yes, so Roberto Calvi. Yeah.
Roberto Calvi. So let's make our way up there,
Okay.
shall we?
So, 1982, they discovered a man hanged under Blackfriars Bridge, and it turned out this man was none other than a guy called Roberto Calvi, who was the Vatican's accountant, and he had the nickname God's Banker. That was his nickname. And he was just hanged. He was hanged underneath the furthest to the right archway. You can kind of see it just there. And they had to wait till low tide to go and get his body because his body was kind of suspended, and they had to get in underneath to get his body. And apparently 5 men went on trial for his murder, but they were all mysteriously found not guilty, even though they almost definitely were.
Well,
Still
they
to this
thought
day.
initially, wasn't it, just to kind of clarify that it was suicide until they found rocks.
Yeah, so
in
his
his shoes and
in his pocket,
pockets.
he had
Yeah.
$14,000 in cash in his pockets
Stop it.
and 5 bricks, which looked a bit suspicious. And they now reckon it was a Mafia hit. So he was whacked by the Mafia for doing.
Well,
devious...
with close connections to the Vatican,
Of course,
obviously.
of course. And they still don't know to this day who was responsible for killing God's Banker.
Okay, guys, so we're coming up on the Savoy place, and along here is the world-famous Savoy Hotel. Now, it has been the epitome of elegance for centuries here in London. Now, the building itself, I think it was, when was it opened up?
It was
1890.
late 1800s.
Well, it was originally the home of, I think it was Count Peter of II of Savoy. It was the Savoy Palace.
Well, the Savoy Theatre was originally there.
Well, that was the palace first, and then Henry VII built a hospital up there for the poor, and the poor and particularly the homeless. So the only part of that that's remaining is the Savoy Chapel, which you can still see, and I've done it in a previous video. But with centuries of history, and particularly that amount of dark history, there has to be some spectral activity in there.
Of course. Well, there's a lot of superstition in the Savoy. So the actual hotel today was built with proceeds from the theatre next door. And because it was built by theatrical types like myself, you know, we're very superstitious people.
Well, even the Irish are as well.
And the Irish as well.
Too.
So there's no hint of the number 13 allowed anywhere in the hotel. So there's no room 13, it goes straight from 12 to 14. And famously in their restaurant, if you book a table for 13 people, they sit you at a table with 14 chairs, and they bring this horrific black statue of a cat called Casper, who's kind of
really weird, isn't
really
he?
weird,
Yeah.
very Art Deco statue. And they bring him in from the check-in area, they put him at the table, and they give him a napkin, put a napkin around his neck, and they give him a full meal. So everything.
Even Winston Churchill insisted on having him.
Yeah.
At one of his meals one time because his guest number was 13. But the actual backstory of the 13 at the table was when a diamond king called Joel Wolfe, he held a dinner party at the Savoy, and prior to his return to South Africa, it was noted that there was 13 people at the table, and as he got up to leave, Wolfe dismissed a comment to be first to leave, and the first to leave would be the first to die. And within 2 weeks, he was shot dead in his office in Johannesburg. So that's where the fear came from, the amount of 13 people at the table as well. So Winston Churchill himself is said to have been so fond of the wooden feline Casper that when a high-spirited group of RAF officers kidnapped him and flew him to Singapore during World War II, he ordered Casper's immediate return. So that is the suspicion of the Savoy. So I have featured this several times in other videos, you guys, but I wanted to bring you down here because this is one of the favorite haunts of Rudyard Kipling. He lived actually above the oldest wine bar in the country, and this is the beautiful Gordon's Wine Bar. Now, this is the outdoor terrace area, and we've come off the Victoria Embankment Gardens, but it is truly special. But over the years, people have felt like the sensation of being watched downstairs in the bar. And I'm going to take you inside and down and show you how beautiful it is in here. But it wouldn't surprise me that if in the corners of this gorgeous establishment that somebody was watching you. Now, it's quite busy, so I don't want to be disruptive. Please, sweetie. So the ghost in here is said to watch you from the corner, and customers have spoken about being tapped on the shoulder frequently by the spirit in here. Now, do you agree it's a stunning place? And there is a private party, so I don't want to intrude, so I'll be quick. So this is the cave area where people eat, and this is the area where the sensation of being tapped on the shoulder is reported. Now, as creepy as it is, it's still very welcoming. They have absolutely no problem whatsoever with me filming in here. They're always so gracious. So it was a frequent haunt of the likes of Charles Dickens and Rudyard Kipling. You can even sense a presence in here. Now look at these, some amazing pictures. There's Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence and Avon, the grandson of Queen Victoria, and one of the suspects in the Jack the Ripper mystery. Now we're going to go down to Whitehall now, my lovelies, and let's continue on from here. I'm not quite sure if that's supposed to be Queen Camilla or Queen Elizabeth II, but it is a ghostly apparition. It certainly isn't. It's quite terrifying.
It's Elizabeth in a Camilla wig.
Queen Camilla in a Camilla wig. This is rather random. That's actually the most terrifying thing we've seen today. Okay, guys, so we've come out on Northumberland Avenue. We're right by the Sherlock Holmes. It's that time of the year now where the clocks have gone back, of course. So it's getting dark quite early, which is always good. We should have done this in the dark.
Yeah.
But we're both flat out on Jack the Ripper tours, so this is the only time we could actually do the video. And down here to Great Scotland Yard to tell you more stories about the Torso Thames murder. Now, this was a serial killer in Victorian London, and the crimes were so horrific. Some had even suggested they were on a par with Jack the Ripper's crimes, even though the MO was completely different. As, in fact, it was just the torso and other body parts that were found. Is that correct, Rob?
Only one victim, they found a face.
Only one victim they got a face.
Not a head, a face.
Oh, wow.
He cut her face like this.
Stop
So from
it.
under the chin, round to the top, round the back of the scalp, and peeled it off and frisbeed it into the River Thames.
Into the River Thames, because they did find body parts in Battersea as well.
So that was the original find. So they found, let's head down the street towards
let's head down so we can talk a bit better,
So 1873 was the first discovery, and there was a young boy doing some mudlarking down in Battersea. So mudlarking, for those of you not familiar, when the tide of the Thames goes out, you've got these lovely muddy beaches. People would go down into the mud and they'd look for valuables and coins. People still do it today,
They still do it,
So this kid was looking for valuables in the mud, and he found a fine woman's corset. So he was obviously thinking, oh wow, what a find, I can sell this down the market. And he lifted it up to take a look at it, and
oh no,
the torso slid out the bottom.
Stop it.
10 or 15 minutes later, someone else found some arms, shoulders and lungs all linked together, hidden in some bushes. Someone else found some legs, and then they also found a face. So it's like a face joined to a scalp that had been cut off of a lady's head. They put all the parts together, and the guy who worked at the mortuary at the time obviously fancied himself as a bit of a Dr. Frankenstein, so he stitched it all back together.
Oh no, stop it.
But because they didn't have a skull,
and no DNA analysis,
he draped the face on a plank of wood, and they offered a reward of £21 to anyone who could come in and identify the woman. Strangely, no one recognised this rotting face on a plank, so no one identified her. But these murders pretty much took place every single year up until the 1890s. So one of the most famous ones was the torso of Great Scotland Yard. So the building wasn't finished until 1889. So they were still.
Which one is it? The Great? Is
one
it
of the
the
gold
hotel,
lanterns?
the Horse
The gold
Guard?
lanterns, just there.
Oh yeah, that's the Horse Guards Hotel.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing hotel, you guys.
So as they were building it, it was a building site, and they discovered a bag full of a woman's body parts just dumped in the middle of the building site, and they reckon it was his most.
So he was brazen enough to dump it in front of the.
Dumping, and they reckon the theory behind it was he was so annoyed at Jack the Ripper.
Had taken the limelight.
Exactly, because he'd obviously spent the last 15 years building himself up as London's premier serial killer. And then
Do you know what? I must do an actual video on him.
This little upstart pops up in the East End, kills a few women.
And we're still talking about him.
Yeah.
Now, finally, one of the most famous executions in London. 30th of January, 1649. This is Banqueting House, the only existing part of Whitehall Palace, right?
Because it was a separate entity in the middle. So the palace used to be, as I said earlier, a giant rectangle. So imagine going all the way down the street, crossing over the street at the
all the way to Parliament, wasn't it? Whitehall
and then behind
Parliament.
us, it covered the area which is now Trafalgar Square. So it's a big rectangular building, and it burned down in 1698. The only bit that survived was the banqueting house because it was in the middle on its own, so it wasn't attached to the rest of the building.
I came here actually for the parade on the 31st last year.
Oh yeah?
30th of January. They do a reenactment of the execution of King Charles.
So there he is.
And there is King Charles I.
Roughly marks the spot where his execution took place because he came out the first floor window.
Dressed in a second...
Two shirts.
Yeah,
he didn't want people to see him shivering in the cold and mistake it for fear.
And this is where his execution took place.
And it was a symbolic execution because this was his house. This is where he lived and his seat of power. So to have him so taken down from power to the point where they actually execute him in his own house. We know what time Charles I was executed. He was executed at 2 p.m. If you look at the clock on the top of the
exact time, yeah.
Look at the clock on the top, on the clock tower there's a black mark on the number 2.
Every now and then we go into tour guide mode where the two of us have the exact same information about things. That's the black dot and the 2 o'clock. I'm just going to try and make my way through around the back, you guys, because I want to finish up at the Admiralty building. And a tale of infatuation, passion, love, lust, and murder. And ghosts that haunt the building. Now, you guys, you'll recognize this place from the trooping of the colour every year. And this is Horse Guards Parade, where the Horse Guard change takes place. On my right-hand side, behind these walls, are the gardens of number 10 Downing Street. And you'll see the policemen there stationed at the main back entrance. And just over here, you have the stunning building known as the Admiralty. Now, ladies and gents, this amazing building was the official residence of the First Lords of the Admiralty. And that was part of a complex of Admiralty buildings. And it was for a time actually the home of Winston Churchill from 1911 to 1915 and between 1939 and 1940. Now, he's significant in this story, and I'll come back to him in just a moment. But in the 18th century, a lady called Martha lived here, and she had a long-term affair, Martha Ray, with a chap called John Montague. Now, John Montague was the 4th Earl of Sandwich. Yes, of Sandwich fame. Now, his wife had suffered from severe mental illness, and he entered into this illicit affair with Martha, and he was with her for many, many years. They had 5 illegitimate sons, one of which was a chap called Basil Montague, actually, which was a famous barrister, philanthropist, and he himself was the founder of the RSPCA in this country. So very well to do. Now, she was a famous singer and actress, and a very attractive, very famous singer. And she was being educated also by the 4th Earl of Sandwich, and he was lavishing several gifts upon her. And everything was going quite well. Now, when she didn't stay with him, she had a residence here in the Admiralty. And they were frequently seen together in an upper echelons of society. It was just considered they were man and wife. She was completely accepted. But years later, he had suffered a bit of financial ruin. Now, it didn't affect the money and the lavish gifts and the money he gave her, but he had introduced her to to this soldier. His name was James Hackman. Now, that's when deceptive jealousy and infatuation ensued. Hackman frequently visited her apartments in here and eventually developed an infatuation with her, and she refused his proposal several times. Now, she did engage in an affair with him for a period of time, further delving him into his infatuation of her. Now, one night she was heading to the Royal Opera House, and she was meeting a friend, and they were attending some show in the Royal Opera House, and he had become so infatuated and jealous of her. He was under the impression she was meeting another man, so he actually followed her. And after the performance was over, she was about to step into her carriage, and he tipped her on the shoulder, and he produced a revolver, and he shot her directly, point blank range, through the head. Now, he attempted himself to commit suicide afterwards, and when that failed, the bullet missed, he fell on the ground, screaming and roaring, banging himself with the butt of the gun, and saying, "God, somebody kill me." So eventually he was arrested, taken away. The Earl of Sandwich went into devastating grief, and he was completely and utterly devastated at the death of his lifelong partner, Martha Ray. And after shouting at the assassination site, "For God's sake, someone kill me," he was eventually tried in the Old Bailey. Now, he did attempt not guilty by reason of an insanity plea, but of course that was thrown out of court, and he was convicted, obviously, and hanged on the 19th of April in 1779 at Tyburn, at the Tyburn Gallows. Now, his body then was taken for dissection to Surgeons' Hall in accordance with the Murder Act of 1752. But Martha's ghost is the one that's said to haunt several politicians over the generations inside the Admiralty here. And even Winston Churchill himself has actually spoken of a visitation from her. He has witnessed her himself inside the Admiralty here. So that was the tragic story of Martha inside the Admiralty building here in London. And even to this day, they say generations of politicians are still haunted by Martha to this day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude our little Halloween foray for this year. I really do hope you enjoyed Rob. He's left us already. He's heading home to organise a little Halloween party for his little daughter. But it's been a pleasure, as always, ladies and gentlemen. Many spooky encounters have taken place in this for centuries in this city, and many more will take place to this day. Happy Halloween, everybody, and of course, happy Samhain, the origin of Halloween, of course, in Ireland, ladies and gentlemen, of pagan festival, jack-o'-lanterns, the original pumpkin, cut-out carved pumpkin was a cut-out carved turnip. Did you know that? As known as jack-o'-lantern. And it was always the night before All Saints and All Souls, where it was said, superstition-wise, in Ireland, that was the thinnest time between the dead and the living. And that's why people wore masks, to ward off and to blend in with the evil spirits that were said to visit at the time. So happy Halloween, you guys. Look at that ominous sky right overhead. I'm going to have to face another horror story right now, and that is rush hour on the tube. Thanks as ever, guys. Sinead signing out in London. Bye. Happy Halloween.